Go ahead, Majid.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Majid Al-Gabandi, and I will be presenting a paper. Actually, just a disclaimer. This presentation was part of my master's studies, one of the courses, actually, and this is what I presented 2 days back. So I think it's really cool. I want to share it with you guys. I am a cybersecurity professional. I do cybersecurity for almost 15 years now. And as of now, I am taking an academic break. So this is what I'm currently working on. So Cached and Confused, Web Cache Deception in the Wild by Mir Haidari et al. This is a paper that has been presented in the UZNX security conference back in 2020. Talks about web cache deception. And I will just go through what happened in that paper and why should we care about web cache deception. Okay, so let's start with the usual suspects. Let's meet the family. Every website has a lot of files, content to be served, JavaScript, CSS, HTML, and others. The tail of a small, tiny web requests. A client goes to the HTTP server, HTTP GET request, or whatever. The server comes back to you with a response, usually what kind of content being served, static content, dynamic content, and so on, and basically files sent back to you. Now, the problem with static or normal web servers that it is not scalable. So if you are running one of the top, let's say 1,000 or 5,000 Alexa websites ranked, then you're probably getting millions of visitors, where people usually start to scale using either cache services or web services or cloud scalable services such as AWS, or maybe something really specific like CDNs on Cloudflare and so on. That's where people try to solve those issues. So basically, one of the things that people almost suffer all the time is the latency, where even though that you are doing distributed services across the globe using the Cloudflare CDN network, for example, you still have the latency issue unless they have something local nearby, next to your telecom or next to your ISP and so on, where your clients are usually based. So yes, that might solve the issues, and therefore, unless you do it really properly, you cannot scale up. You'll always have that performance penalty, and you'll always have that latency. So that's where we kind of have a solution where either you provide or you do caching, especially for geographic locations such as Kuwait, where it is really easy to target your users by just setting up, let's say within 3 or 4 major ISPs in Kuwait, you can always serve the content you need really close to your clients. And this also solves the latency problem. So basically, people get the content based on the cache server they are located in. You can always do the same thing for your external customers. For example, if we have a good base of customers in Europe, Kuwaiti customers, for example, then you could easily set up a cache server there within the CDN network, and your customers which are living or staying in Europe will be able to access local content. However, it is more fast and responsive. Think about Netflix, for example. That's what they do, and that's why they always have content delivered locally. So what's wrong with that? Let's see. Let's talk about 2 things, poisoning and deception. So going straight forward to the to the good stuff, web cache poisoning. Basically, it's one kind of the attacks where an attacker actually creates a request to certain web resource that the attacker himself he controls. However, this request goes to one of the caching services. This could be set up by your ISP, your corporate network, and so on. By triggering that request, since the actual resource is not being accessed before it is not existing on the cache, then it will be fetching the actual request from the web server, and the web server will also deliver to you the poisoned or controlled adversary controlled content. And that's where you basically the adversary has was able to put the what's a nice way to do this? So he was able to abuse the CDN and use the CDN as a malware delivery network instead of content delivery network. That's basically what they do. But to be frank, this is out of scope. That's not even web cache deception. Web cache deception is another technique. Actually, it was, I think, first spoken about by Omar Gill in Black Hat 2017. Basically, it abuses the idea of path confusion. For example, if you have a web service that uses example.com, I'm not sure if you can see this on the slide. Let me just put the pointer. Yeah, okay. Example.com, legacy websites, they use something like index.php, then parameter 1, value 1, parameter 2, value 2, and so on. Now, everyone is going to microservices, and they use more clean URLs, such as this one, for example. You could have multiple tags or parameters as subdirectories or subfolders within the URI that you are using. So the reason this kind of attacks exist is that when you go and deploy any CDN, things gets messy. So let's see how it goes. But aren't we supposed to have the responsibility shifted to the CDNs by using caches? No, basically this is a huge problem. Web cache is not being formally used as a security control or as the I would say a security measure standalone or as something that you could offload to your CDN. It is a joint responsibility. You will see that if a developer creates a service that is not properly configured to be used with caches, and then if your company decides to use CDNs just to make things faster, regardless of the content, like because we're talking about static content, things can go terribly wrong. So this is an HTTP request. One of the HTTP headers being used in the HTTP standard is the cache control. For example, here you can see that we are specifying the max age equals 60, which means after 60 seconds, this kind of content delivered by bbc.com, for example, needs to expire. So it is forbidden or it is advisable not to cache that content. So basically, if BBC uses a CDN, the CDN will know that after 60 seconds, it needs to update the resource that we are accessing. Some developers or some specific areas and websites, you don't want it to be cached, so you can specify no store or no cache. That's how it is built in the specification. This is an example of one of the CDN providers. If you onboard your website on their services, you can see that you need to specify the URL, and then you can, for example, do caching based on the type of content, images, CSS, JS, and so on. Or you could be even more explicit by defining or setting your own extensions that you expect the CDN to cache for you. Now, the deception happens where if the attacker creates, for example, a fake or a request for a fake resource that does not exist. For example, let's say that there is a portal or any web service being used that has a private area, for example, your control panel, user control panel, or it could be any portal or user portal. So if you think about it, this area, I wouldn't expect it to be cached. So if you haven't configured that, well, tough luck, CDNs will cache everything. So you need to really specify exactly what you need to cache and what not to be cached. Now, if I trigger a request, or let's say deceive a victim to access a certain URL, a very valid URL, for example, paypal.com / my account area, which takes you to your control panel, and then just ask for something does not exist. For example, non-existent.jpg. This goes to the server. If the server doesn't actually find that, again, it is a joint responsibility. If your web application firewall or if your web server doesn't handle this properly, and let's say go back to the user and say, oh, sorry, it's not there, and you actually render an HTML page for that while giving HTTP 200, okay, so you're misusing the error codes. The CDN will take that and say, oh, yeah, so it seems like this JPEG file should be there, and this is the content of it. So basically, the CDN will cache the page itself, the private area, along with the user-specific content, and serve it to all other users while they are not logged into the same account. So Omar did a video on PayPal. So let's go through it. I'm skipping lots of slides just because of the time, but I really think that you should have a look here.
You have 1 minute.
Yeah, it's only 30 seconds. Hold on. Okay, do you see the video playing?
No, it's a static image. It's not moving. Okay, here. Yeah. So basically, that's Omar logged into his PayPal account. If you see the address URL there, he's gonna just add a non-existing file and have this cached in the public cache of the CDN being used by PayPal. So he asked for malicious .css, and then just opening another browser, and you'll see that the whole page got cached just because a file does not exist. That's it. I'm not sure if you have time for questions, but thank you so much for attending, and hit me up if you have any questions. We have 5 minutes for Q&A. Anybody has questions? Yeah. Any question? Okay. No questions.
Okay, thank you so much.
لحظة ماجد في سؤال.
Yeah.
This method, well, very well known that cache providers or developers are working.
I really cannot hear the question.
Yeah. I'll relay the question.
Okay.
It's saying, is this issue well known that the cache developers or CDN providers are working against preventing it?
Okay. Actually, because of the time, I wasn't able to present this, but one of the research areas done by the authors, they actually surveyed the Alexa top 5K websites, the first 1K, 2K, 3K, and so on. And they got results that for the first 1K, 7% of the websites, they are actually vulnerable to this. So here's a free bug bounty thing. Just go and find who's vulnerable to this, and most probably they are. It is a misconfiguration because CDNs rely on the data being set by the browsers, by web servers.
And if you don't parse it well, or if you don't provide the right information, then CDNs will just serve it to the others. It is common. I've seen it myself in the wild. If you're running any kind of CDNs, I would suggest highly suggest to check those configuration. What is being cached, what not, because most probably there is a good chance that you're running utilizing a CDN without actually properly configuring.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. And thanks a lot for making the time to join us from Netherlands.
Thank you, and always honored to.
Thank you.